I love watching the chat. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another late night edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, you know the drill. I'm a retired New York City police detective and a 9/11 World Trade Center first responder. If you like all things true crime related from that police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon when I go live or upload another video. Hey, today we are going to get into Rex Heuermann. He's got a court date tomorrow. He's asking, his family, his wife is asking for property back from the Suffolk and Nassau County Police Department. But we're also going to talk about his body language analysis. Holy shiitake mushrooms. Dr. G Explains did a video 2 months ago analyzing Rex Heuermann's body language. And you know what? I was talking to him tonight on text message, and he agreed to come this week and do another show with me and Ed, with us, and do the analyzing of Rex Heuermann, his body language, his psychology. He's going to do a psychological breakdown on this guy. It's going to be phenomenal. So thank you to everybody for being here late night. And somebody said it in the chat. I think it was Princess Mitch. She said, it's only 8 o'clock by me. And other people said, only the diehards are here. So I want to say a special thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, all of the folks who watch the replays, leave super thanks and super chats and become Patreon supporters and buying cups of coffee. They come in during the day, and when I see them, it gives me a big smile. And yeah, you got to love Dr. G Explains. He's phenomenal. So yeah, 8 o'clock, Kelly B 750 says 8 o'clock in Arizona. We can handle this. Yeah, Jeff, he's in Wyoming. So it's not 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast. I am not working this week, so I'm off. And this is a preview of what you're going to get when I fully retire, when I stop working down at my day job. This is what you're going to get. So by a show of hands here, hi to everybody that's joining. Thank you. Yeah, we're going to analyze the perp walk. We're going to analyze his takedown. We are going to analyze a bunch of stuff, but we're going to also look at Dr. G's video from 2 months ago, and we're going to go over stuff. But if you have questions about Rex Heuermann, his body language, psychology aspect of it, send those questions into DutyRon.com. Ed Wallace and I are having lunch tomorrow. We're going to get together for lunch. I asked him if he could join me tonight at 11 o'clock, and he said, I got my pajamas on. I got my fuzzy slippers and my pajamas. I'm going to bed. You're on your own, DutyRon, so it's all good. Diane B is busting my chops continuously in the chat, which I love. She says, tomorrow morning, I'll be beeping my horn outside of your house. What she doesn't realize is that I'm a heavy sleeper. She's not going to wake me up. And by the way, I'm wearing the Gabby Petito Foundation 3/4 zip. We purchased this at the Gabby Petito golf outing 2 years ago. And today, September 26th, it was 2 years ago on September 26th that her family had a memorial service on Long Island, and Diane B and I went to that memorial service. Diane, can you believe that was 2 years ago today? I can't believe it. And I know that there was a funeral in Farmingdale for the two folks that were chaperoning, and so it was a teacher and a chaperone, retired woman. There was services tonight in Farmingdale. So it's just unbelievable that 2 years went by. So, but I put this 3/4 zip, dry fit long sleeve. It's a long sleeve, but I pulled the sleeves up. I put it on just, in memory of Gabby Petito. So we're going to keep them in our thoughts and prayers, and the people of Farmingdale, Long Island as well. All right, here we go. Here's a little bit of, let me see what I got here. This is about the court appearance tomorrow. Rex Heuermann, just so you guys know, tomorrow he's going to have court. So pretrial hearings, and also they're going to discussed the return of his weapons, 260 plus, 280. I might not have that number right, but it's 250 or more legally possessed long arms. And Asa Ellerup, his wife, is asking for him back because she wants to liquidate, because she says that she needs the money. I personally feel that it's a liability issue due to, what we've seen in the media. We'd have to question her mental stability at this point because of everything that they're going through. Her son is autistic. You could see he was visibly shaken. And the daughter, through her attorney, said that she's distraught as well because she lost her job. So you're going to give 250 or 200 plus weapons back to Asa Ellerup, her daughter, the son, in that home. And I don't think the neighbors would be pretty happy about that. And I get that everyone has their rights, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, legally possessed. Are they not being used in the prosecution? It's not alleged that Rex Heuermann shot any of these victims. It's not alleged that any of these weapons that we know of were used in the commission of this crime or these crimes. So these will be all decisions. These will be all things that would come into the decision making. But I say, for liability reasons, and by a show of hands, let me know what you think. The handguns are licensed. The handguns were legally licensed, but the long arms, I believe, her attorney's arguing that they were purchased by both of them and they were both their property. And if it's not illegal and they're not using it in the trial as evidence, then there may be a chance that they have to return it unless they can go the mental health route. Maybe the judge can order a mental health evaluation. I don't know. I'm not sure, but we'll find out tomorrow. We'll see what they say. So tomorrow would be they're going to go over that and pretrial hearings and possibly more evidence. So we don't know. We don't have access to the case file, so we don't know. I hope and pray Suffolk and Nassau County say that these weapons need to be held, and they hold them back with an air of caution, because I don't think anybody they put it out publicly, right? Through their attorneys, they put it out that they're distraught, that their lives have been turned upside down, right? That their home is in shambles. Now you're going to return 200 plus guns to the very people who said that their lives are turned upside down and that they're depressed. And you saw the son on the porch crying. Their home is not livable. And now you're going to give them access. I don't think, look, first and foremost, I don't think the neighbors, like you guys, by a show of hands, who saw me drive through that neighborhood? My wife and I were in North Massapequa, Massapequa Park, and we were visiting with friends, and we drove through there, and there was those little kids riding their bicycles around. I mean, do you think the police with a good conscience can give back 200 plus guns to this family? I'd say no. I would. My vote would be no. Hold off until this trial is over, and even then, I would say mental health evaluation. How are they going to be safeguarded? Will her son have access to them? We know that Rex Heuermann had a room in the basement that was a vault, a gun vault, to secure these weapons, right? So, all right, let's listen to this is about court tomorrow. So let's take a listen to this. This is News Nation. Susan Gilliam says, I saw you. I saw you too. I don't think I didn't see you. I see you too, Susan. Here we go.
It's now been more than 2 months since Gilgo Beach murder suspect Rex Heuermann was arrested, and tomorrow he will be in court. Heuermann is charged with killing 3 women along the New York coast, but is also suspected in the disappearance of a 4th woman. Authorities searched his home in Massapequa Park on Long Island last month, confiscating items from his home over the course of 12 days. News Nation's Laura Ingle is following the story as live on Long Island. And Laura, what can we expect at tomorrow's court appearance?
Yeah, tomorrow is going to be actually the third court appearance for the suspect in the case. And we could hear a little or a lot. It's really about discovery. So it's going to be very interesting. And we will be inside the courtroom for this hearing. And as we get ready for that in-person hearing for Rex Heuermann, the suspect in the Long Island serial killer case, there's a lot going on here in Massapequa Park, where he lived with his wife and adult children, and also for the people who lived here as well. We spoke with several residents who are following every development in this story, many who still today cannot believe the suspect lived in their hometown.
I knew people who knew him. They say he's very dark. You know, he wasn't too friendly. They were a little afraid of him. Kids wouldn't go trick-or-treating back in the day, knocking on the door. So they knew something was up.
Meanwhile, the battle for the family belongings that were removed during that initial 12-day raid that you mentioned of the home where the suspect lived with his family continues this week, as court papers were filed yesterday to have a large amount of guns removed from the home, turned over to a licensed firearm dealer so they can be sold and profits divided. We're talking about 287 weapons. Heuermann was the breadwinner of the family, and his wife and children are now financially.
So 287 guns, but you know, the ones that are handguns, obviously they're registered and licensed. There was 92 according to District Attorney Tierney. 92 were handguns, and they were registered to Rex Heuermann. So Asa Ellerup could not get those guns. We're talking about the long rifles, the long guns. So how are they going to do this transfer? Is Asa Ellerup going to have to rent a U-Haul and go to headquarters where the property section is and load them into a U-Haul, as we saw them putting it into a big box truck when they were taking them out of there? I don't think so. I don't think they get these guns back. So if I'm a betting man, I'm betting my pension, I say the answer is, hold on. You know what's coming.
Oh, hell no.
And I'll say it again.
Oh, hell no.
Strapped. Now, I spoke with attorney Robert Macedonio, who represents Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, and he told us the family is also fighting to get back their personal stuff that don't hold any forensic value, including clothes, jewelry.
They don't want the guns. They don't want to keep the guns, according to the attorney. They want to sell them. They want to sell them to a federal firearms dealer, you know, to a store, to collectors. And there's probably it looked like some really old weapons there. So I'll play this back so you guys can hear what they're talking about.
Can be sold and profits divided. We're talking.
Guys, make sure you hit the thumbs up, share it out, and let me know if you like these late night live streams. We're going to have Dr. G Explains come on with us, maybe tomorrow night, maybe Friday night. I don't know. But we're going to have Dr. G Explains come on and break down Rex Heuermann's body language. I'm going to try to get as much film and video of Rex Heuermann, the walkout from Suffolk County lockup, and we're going to try to compile. So if you have any footage of Rex Heuermann or audio, like we have the voicemails that he left, some of the people that were in his architect group, send it to me at DutyRon.com. Any and all Rex Heuermann file footage, send it to me, please.
About 287 weapons. Heuermann was the breadwinner of the family, and his wife and children are now financially strapped. Now, I spoke with attorney Robert Macedonio, who represents Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, and he told us the family is also fighting to get back their personal stuff that don't hold any forensic value, including clothes, jewelry, and cars, while they are still processing their new reality.
So she was completely blindsided. Nobody wants to believe that they were living with and sleeping with a serial killer. So the initial reaction is, there's no way. So she's going to listen to the case, listen to the trial, look at all the evidence, and she'll decide like the rest of us will. At this point in time, the only thing she knows about this case is what the media is reporting.
So Heuermann is expected back in court tomorrow morning around.
She also knows what her husband's routines were. You don't live with somebody for 27 years and not know what their routines are. So that's what the lawyer is leaving out. And I get why he's leaving that out. But by a show of hands, who understands what I'm saying here? You live with someone, whether you hate them, whether you love them, or whether you're just in between and you're just coexisting, you still know what their routines are, right? So Macedonio, the attorney for Asa Ellerup, of course, he's protecting his client. But, you know, again, everybody that's here in the chat, are we on board? You know, I think it's hogwash that she is totally blindsided by this. You mean to tell me you don't have any inkling of how your husband operates? I mean, I get that there's a lot of things that could be held and secretive and whatever, but come on now. Come on. Let me just put it back so we can hear that again, because I mean, it always amazes me when you hear the attorneys talk, you know?
Now, I spoke with attorney Robert Macedonio, who represents Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, and he told us the family is also fighting to get back their personal stuff that don't hold any forensic value, including clothes, jewelry, and cars, while they are still processing their new reality.
So she was completely blindsided. Nobody wants to believe that they were living with and sleeping with a serial killer. So the initial reaction is, there's no way. So she's going to listen to the case, listen to the trial, look at all the evidence, and she'll decide like the rest of us will.
Did she look at that 300? Hold on. Let me get the affidavit. All she has to do is look at this extensive. Let me just put myself back on because I have it here. This is how much the initial findings on her husband is released, where she could get this, right? 32 pages, 8 terabytes, 8 trillion bytes of evidence, all of his disgusting and despicable searches that he did online. Things that make you go, right?
At this point in time, the only thing she knows about this case is what the media is reporting.
So Heuermann is expected back in court tomorrow morning around 9:30 Eastern. And again, this is going to be a status conference hearing, and that will also discuss discovery matters as well. So we could learn a lot more tomorrow.
So it could be discovery, it could be more evidence that they reveal tomorrow. You never know. But this was reported live today from Massapequa Park, Long Island. And, you know, in this piece, you hear from people who are just still, they still can't believe what was going on right underneath their noses. They were living for all those years with an alleged serial killer walking amongst them. It's just another example of what Ed and I always say: evil knows no boundaries, and you never know who you're walking beside. So it's pretty scary when you think about it, right? Because we all have those funky neighbors that you don't know what they're doing. You never see them outside. They're always staying inside. I think every neighborhood has that, right? But, you know, it is what it is. Here's another piece that I wanted to play, and then I'm going to go
New court filings in the case.
I'm going to go to Dr. G explains. Who here wants to see a little bit of Rex Heuermann's body language being broken down by a professional, by Dr. G? We're going to have him live on the channel, but he gave me permission to play some of his 14-minute or so video that he made, and that was the real estate YouTuber who interviewed him with that famous video with him and his dog. And Rex Heuermann's talking, hi, my name is Rex. I'm from Long Island, born and raised. Everybody see that? Well, he broke that down, and it was unbelievable. So, so it is what it is. Let's go to this.
The serial killer Rex Heuermann, showing that lawyers are arguing now over what to do with his large stash of guns. 60-year-old suspect accused of murdering 3 women whose remains were found 13 years ago out in Long Island. And his family is desperate to sell the guns for cash while he is in jail. Let's get more on this story. News Nation's Laura Engel has been certainly working this story for some time. I mean, Laura joins us now in New York. So how many guns are we talking about here, Laura?
You know, there are a lot. Close to 300 guns were removed from suspect Rex Heuermann's Heuermann's home when he was arrested in this case. You might remember this. And when we heard about the staggering amount of firearms, 287 in all, it was certainly a shock to many. But for Heuermann's wife, many of these guns are family heirlooms and hold a high value, what she says she's entitled to as a
family heirlooms. Okay, I understand that. So if it's a family heirloom and it's been in your family generation to generation, right? And they're collector's items, what's the rush? Wasn't there a GoFundMe that was started by the smiley face, happy face serial killer murderer's daughter? And in that GoFundMe, there was over $100,000 raised. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to be funny here, but didn't a very well-known serial killer's daughter come to her house, make a People magazine interview, and do, I mean, it was nice, right? And we all saw it, and everybody was chiming in about it. And didn't she raise arguably $100,000 for her? So if these guns are worth a lot of money, what's the rush to get them back? And if she can eventually get them back, they're still going to be worth what they're going to be worth, what they are worth today, in another 6 months from now or another year from now. That's all. I'm just trying to make a point. I wouldn't give the firearms back because I wouldn't want to see, God forbid, a tragedy. And a tragedy could be any one of many different things. A, they use those firearms to stop their pain, if you know what I mean, to commit suicide, kill themselves. B, they use them to hurt someone in the neighborhood, angry at the neighbors, angry at the neighborhood. These are just scenarios. Or C, somebody gets a hold of them. That's a lot of weapons. Somebody breaks into that house and takes them because they want a piece of what Rex Heuermann had. So those are some possibilities. Dangerous. Yeah, late night with me, Pete. Good to see you, brother. Thank you for joining. Joey Brooklyn's here. Everybody's here. Let's Unpack That's here. Beamer 650, Vicky, Diamond Girl. Yeah. All right, let's let the rest of this rip, and then I got some stuff to show you.
Pertains to marital assets. As Suffolk County Police detectives searched the Massapequa Park home of Rex Heuermann for 12 days after his arrest in July, hauling. You
see them hauling all that stuff into a big box truck? That's what they're going to need to take those weapons back. They're going to need a box truck. EMT 623. I was going to say 650. Welcome, EMT 623. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. PB&J. I could go for a PB&J right now, but it's late, so I got to get to bed after this. Well, I don't have to work tomorrow, so I don't have to go to bed at any particular time. I like not working.
Away his enormous weapons collection, which included gun magazine cases, ammunition, and shell casings on top of all of those firearms. That is also in addition to other valuable items, including cash, clothing, and jewelry. His wife, Asa Ellerup, who filed for divorce a week after her husband was arrested, has been fighting to get those items released, arguing she's got the legal right as his spouse to have those assets and eventually divided as her divorce case moves forward. Rex Heuermann's defense lawyers have been fighting a move from Suffolk County prosecutors to turn those weapons over to Nassau County, where the Long Island serial killer suspect could face gun charges. Investigators have determined.
So you see, that's what would have to happen. Because Suffolk County Police has them in their possession because the search warrants were executed by Suffolk, but they reside in Nassau County. So interesting, right?
That he was in possession of a handful of weapons that violated state gun laws. That's what this is all about. Both Heuermann's attorney and the attorney representing Ellerup want the guns to be legally turned over so they can be sold to help his family, which is struggling financially. I spoke with Ellerup's lawyer last week, who told us if the guns don't hold any forensic value to the case, there is no reason to keep them from being sold.
We have suggested have it transferred to licensed firearm dealers so they can be appraised and properly disposed of. We understand the optics of returning firearms to the home of an alleged serial killer, and nobody wants to get into the optics of that. We're not looking to put anybody in that position, but it's the position that they're worth several $100,000, the collection.
The only way that I would be comfortable with this transfer of these weapons would be to, obviously, like they said, a federal firearms dealer to a gun store, and that they never had their hands on them, that she didn't bring them home back to the house. That would be, to me, the only way you could do it. If these guns, in fact, are not evidence, I don't think they legally can hold them back. But if her intention is to sell them and transfer them to a federal firearms, FFL, or whatever the acronym is for those federal firearms dealers, which is a gun store, then I would be okay with that, because as long as they don't have it in their possession. Yeah, FFL. Thanks, Retired Irish Detective. Grab a gun and run, says Richie. Thanks for being here, Rich.
And her attorney added that once they are turned over, appraised, and sold, that money should be held until the divorce is decided and how the assets are going to be divided.
What happened today? There wasn't a hearing, right? There was a conference of some sort today, right?
It was basically all the paperwork had to be filed from both sides. So it is really this battle that's going on with court filings. Everything has been handed in. I spoke to the attorneys on this, and now we just wait to find out what's going to be decided on the guns.
But when's the next time we would actually see him in court? Do we know, in person?
Yeah,
tomorrow.
We believe it could be this week, day after tomorrow. He is expected to be in court for a status conference hearing. I did ask the attorney for the wife if she is going to be there, if any family is going to be there. They say no, that is not the plan, but we do plan to see him on Wednesday.
Now, I know you've been all over this case for a number of years, right? You've been covering this for a long time.
And I know this 2 nights ago, when we were live, 2 nights ago, attorney Melanie Little told Mike King that she was going to be heading over there. I'm not sure if she still is, but it would be fascinating to hear her take on it. I'm hoping that she does go there tomorrow. Ed Wallace and I are having lunch. We're going to get together in person tomorrow. I'm going to see if I can get Ed to come here in the studio and sit right beside me here, and see if we could do a live stream together from right here in the studio. So let me know if you would be interested in seeing that by putting a 1 in the chat, and putting a 2 if you just always like to see us separately on the screen. Me and Ed together here, right at the studio. There's plenty of room right next to me here. I have the camera in tight right now. I'll show you. Let me back the camera out. So Ed could come and sit like right here and be in screen. I could just move over a little bit, and then Ed could be right in here with me. So it'd be pretty cool, I think. Let me know what your thoughts are.
this is a big week. I mean, it's not just because our show's debuting, Laura.
Right, of course.
But for you, but for you, you know, on this case, I know you'll be, I think, isn't it tomorrow? You'll be out on Long Island, right? We have a lot to look forward to.
We are. We're going to bring you more from Long Island tomorrow. We're going to go to Massapequa Park, where we've been spending some time talking with neighbors and talking with people who live there. We're also going to be at the court on Wednesday. So we've got a lot to bring you this week.
All right. We'll look forward to that. We'll see you tomorrow from Long Island. Thank you.
So there you go. She's going to court. We know that she's going to be going to court. That's for sure. Woo, I put it in too tight. All right, that's better. It was too close and in my face. All right, so a lot of number ones and just one or two number twos. Everybody wants to see Ed here, so it's a ton of number ones. Let me see who was a number two. Dee Dee says, no, I don't want to see Ed with you. I want Ed separate. I'm used to seeing Ed separate on the screen, and no, she said, Dee Dee, she's she's like,
oh hell no.
All right. So I got a treat for you. This is going to be a lot of fun because behavioral and body language broken down by Dr. G. Wow. Have courage, be kind. Good night. Good night. Put your slippers on and head on into bed. So Dr. G did a breakdown 2 months ago, behavioral and body language breakdown of Rex Heuermann. Did anybody see it? Has anybody seen it on his channel? Put a 1 in the chat if you've seen it. Lexi's laughing at me. Sweet One says, I don't want to use cohesion to get Ed with you. Okay, he's coming. He's coming to hang out with me tomorrow, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All right, so here we go with Dr. G. He breaks down this famous interview with Rex Heuermann and a real estate guy. I don't know his name. I know he had the video up and then he took it down. A lot of us wanted to see this video, but oh my goodness, Dr. G Explains is phenomenal. He is awesome. Really awesome. So we won't sing. We will not sing, Pete. I know you would like that. He might try to sing, but I'm not going to sing. Diane wants to get in between us, in the middle of us. Natasha Richardson, I know she would love to be here with me and Ed in the studio. And guess what? We are possibly going to CrimeCon next year in Nashville. Me and Ed, we talked about it. Ed said, why aren't we going to CrimeCon next year? And I said, well, I never said we weren't going to go. So I think Ed and I are going to make the trip down to CrimeCon. You guys are all welcome to come and join us. And it's going to be in Nashville, Tennessee. So next year, CrimeCon, we're rocking and rolling, me and Ed. We're going to get a booth. We're going to get a booth. And we would love to see you guys there. So if anybody's in the Nashville area or wants to come to Nashville next year, start making plans. So we will be there. Lorraine Lawrence says, I may go. I may go next year too. Me and Ed are going to be packing at CrimeCon. We're going to have our pistols with us. So we can pack in all 50 states. So me and Ed will be ready. We'll be ready. Love Win says it's $350 a ticket. Get 2. So there you go. Yeah, we're going to be going to CrimeCon. Awesome. Sounds good. So let's play Dr. G Explains as he breaks down Rex Heuermann in that interview. He has some fascinating things to say. So fascinating that I watched this video twice. It's 18 minutes. I watched it twice. So let's take a peek. Let's listen to Dr. G Explains.
Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing Rex Heuermann.
Let me know how the
Heuermann
volume
was
is.
recently arrested for the murder of the Gilgo Four. The Gilgo Four are 4 women who were found murdered on Gilgo Beach in 2010. All 4 of them were arrested.
Let me know if the volume is good in the chat. Just let me know just by saying volume is okay or just a thumbs up. I just volunteered at a local Comic Cons. Hey Sharon, how are you? Thanks for the super chat. Yeah, start making plans for Nashville. It's going to be we're going to be there all weekend. I think Ed and I are going to fly out there on a Thursday because we want to party a little bit in Nashville. So we're going to go out on Thursday night, and then Friday night's CrimeCon, Saturday night, and then we'll come home on Sunday. So we're going to go a day or two early to, I've never been to Nashville. So that'll be my very first time in Nashville. So it'll be fun. All right, let's let this rip.
Escorts, and all 4 of them were wrapped in burlap. Before we get started, I do want to remind you that he is presumed innocent until found guilty in a court of law. At this point, he is just a suspect. In addition to that, I am only talking about my opinions in this video. I am not insisting that anything I say is fact. This is just my thoughts, just my opinions, and my interpretations of the publicly available facts as I see them. Before we get started, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. What we're going to be analyzing today is a 2022 interview with Rex Heuermann about his role as an architect. The first part of this video, we're going to look at the psychology of what I learned from his interview. The second part, we're going to look at how that psychology possibly intersects with the serial killings. And third, we're going to watch clips of the video together so we can look at his body language. So here are some of the psychological highlights that I learned from this video. One is that he's knowledgeable and detail-oriented. He knows a lot about city regulations and a lot about codes. He is meticulous and detail-oriented. He oftentimes brings up specific incidents, codes, historical regulations. He does show a very meticulous nature. And this is something that would be needed as both an architect and in the types of crimes that we saw committed. In the interview, he oftentimes talks about his patience and perseverance, willing to wait for the desired outcomes. This is also a trait that's necessary for someone who could successfully commit serial killings. Possible manipulation and persuasion. He talks about how he's able to bend the rules within a defined system. He talks about his persuasive nature. And this is something that we oftentimes see in people who are successfully manipulative. Heuermann is analytical and has strong problem-solving skills. He sees himself as able to come up with creative solutions to complex problems. While this is a crucial aspect of his professional role, we oftentimes see this in serial killers that come up with elaborate ways to avoid detection. Comfort with isolation. He oftentimes spends significant amounts of time alone, like waiting in the commissioner's office. And it suggests a degree of comfort with isolation, a trait we often see in serial killers because it helps avoid detection. He's also adaptive. He shows an ability to be adaptive in changing circumstances, like changing building codes and city regulations. And this is a trait that we see in serial killers, being able to adapt and evolve as circumstances change. And just to be super clear, these are obviously not traits that we see exclusively in serial killers. But what it does help us do is better understand his psychology so we can see what ways that it does in fact intersect with the crimes that he's been accused of. Now let's talk about how the psychology of what we learned about him during the interview is also potentially consistent with the crimes that were committed. Heuermann being an architect and the methodical nature of the crimes. So being an architect obviously requires a methodical nature. That's something that he displayed during the interview, which we're going to watch some of. Now, keep in mind, these murders were done in a consistent fashion. They were all found wrapped in burlap, all found in the same location. Whether or not it was Rex Heuermann, we're seeing a highly organized offender. We're seeing someone that demonstrates planning and consistency. The selection of his victims. These women were all escorts. This is going to exploit women that are in a highly vulnerable situation and are also less likely to be reported as missing as quickly as someone else. So this suggests a level of social cunning. And as Rex Heuermann describes himself, he is a very cunning individual. He's someone that can think around situations and can think through them. This shows, once again, that meticulous analytical nature. Meticulousness in avoiding detection. The amount of time between the disappearance and the discovery of the bodies was significant. It shows a large amount of forethought and planning. And as Rex Heuermann discusses in his interview, those are definite strengths of his. Possible narcissistic tendencies. In his professional statements, he said he likes to bring his visions to life and shape the world around him. And this is a trait that we oftentimes see with people that need high levels of control. And something that we know about psychopaths and people that commit these types of murders is they have a very high need for control. His interview also showed some level of obsession with perfection and precision. And that obsessive nature we've seen from allegations that he consistently Googled and looked up his victims, that he was looking up family members, that there was an obsession with victims. Once again, he is still just a suspect, but apparently what is being reported is that he did consistent and large volumes of Google searches on his victims and the crimes that were committed. So now we've talked about the psychology of this interview and the psychology of someone who would actually commit these crimes. Now let's talk about the body language. Let's watch some of this interview and see what his body language tells us.
Hello. Hi, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Likewise. I hope you don't mind. I brought my assistant with me, Norman.
Hello, Norman.
So he said he hopes he doesn't mind that he brought his dog. I think he actually does mind. Watch this.
Yeah.
Looks at the dog.
Yes.
Looks at the interviewer, frowns a little bit. So once again, there you can not like that somebody brought their dog and not be a serial killer. But what it does imply is a high need for control. And that's going to give us more information about what he is like. That's one thing I want you to keep in mind as we watch this, is the goal of this is not to prove that he's a serial killer. The goal of this is to get some idea of his psychology, see if there's anything about his subtle body language that helps us better understand him and how he feels.
Yes,
Yeah,
please. Okay.
I know.
Being in your office, all right?
I wasn't looking forward to doing this under a scaffold.
So he's trying to use humor and connect with somebody to show somebody with some level of social skills. Let's keep watching.
Okay.
So he's opening up his body language. One thing I want you to keep in mind, because I oftentimes talk about in forensic settings, when people have their body language closed off, that there's lying, and when people feel uncomfortable, that they start to close their body off. This is not a forensic setting. This is just a normal interview. So keep in mind, this is not the kind of body language that we're going to see from him if it was a trial or if it was an interrogation or something like that. So this is going to be a little bit different than some of the other things that we review.
Rex Heuermann. I'm an architect. I'm an architectural consultant. I'm a troubleshooter. Born and raised on Long Island.
Okay.
Been working in.
This is interesting. He said born and raised on Long Island.
I'm a troubleshooter. Born and raised on Long Island.
It's interesting that for some reason he closes his eyes when he's talking about born and raised on Long Island. We oftentimes associate that with things that people don't like. I don't know why he doesn't like that specifically, but it seems that unconsciously there's maybe a little something to that.
There has to be more to Rex Heuermann's bringing up, is, growing up, going through high school. I can't wait to hear more about Rex Heuermann, but these are little things that Dr. G is picking out that fascinate me, because, most of us regular people are not body language experts, are not picking up on these signs. And that's why I asked him to come tomorrow night or Friday night. He gave me two dates. I think it was either Wednesday night, meaning now we're into Wednesday or close to it. It's 11:46 here. Or Friday. So I'm gonna pick between those two dates, and it's just fascinating to hear a professional's take on it. So I'll let the rest of this rip. But Rex Heuermann, he gives up a lot here in this interview, and the guy who was interviewing him, I think, was just starstruck by him, because obviously he didn't know that he was going to be arrested in a short time later after he did this interview, and charged with allegedly killing now 3, but up to 4 of the girls' remains that were found at Gilgo. So he had no clue, obviously, but he seemed like he was starstruck, and he was laughing and carrying on throughout the whole interview to try to make it fun. I think he was maybe nervous, but he was trying to, use that nervous laugh, so to speak.
Island.
It's interesting that for some reason he closes his eyes when he's talking about born and raised on Long Island. We oftentimes associate that with things that people don't like. I don't know why he doesn't like that specifically, but it seems that unconsciously there's maybe a little something to that. Let's keep watching.
Okay.
Been working in Manhattan since 1987. I have other clients who are a lot of other architects, and we'll handle their interactions with the building department, especially out of city architects, because they're a little afraid of the city. And when a job that should have been routine.
Now, this is interesting. You have the interviewer laughing, trying to develop some kind of rapport. And while Heuermann was willing to go along with that earlier on, he has a point to make now. He's not interested in laughing and trying to get along in that way. He's talking about himself, and he wants himself to be heard. So he's not willing to divert his attention in this moment. Once again, this shows somebody with a little bit of a controlling nature. Let's watch that again.
The city architects, because they're a little afraid of the city. And when a job.
See, he didn't even give a polite smile. And that's very interesting, because oftentimes with social mirroring, when we're with somebody that we like, we automatically do that. We try to do that, even if it's not in our nature to be jovial and laugh the way that this interviewer is laughing. We oftentimes reflect it a little bit, and he's not reflecting it at all, which I think is interesting.
Job that should have been routine suddenly becomes not routine. I get the phone call.
That you do.
People don't always understand when it comes to building codes. They never read the administrative section.
So he's willing to smile, and
he does have that little bit of speech impediment when he pronounces his S's. That was a good catch right there. Unsolved crimes uncovered. Good to see, Allie.
Sort of laugh a little bit when he is making his own jokes for his own point. But it's interesting that he doesn't reflect that.
Of art and science and the understanding of the code to make it work. And that's what I apply to each job. I actually just purchased this.
And this goes to speak to that meticulous nature. all architects are going to be somewhat meticulous, but he does think of his analytical abilities. Now, I know I'm just showing a little clip of this, but I'm showing that the way that he sees himself as someone who's highly analytical, someone who is highly meticulous, someone that can problem solve. That is essentially what he talks about through the vast majority of this interview. And I know this interview is about 20 minutes long. We're just watching little bits of it because the vast majority of what he talks about and the body language is not incredibly meaningful, but I do want you to hear some little parts.
Oh,
because I'm dealing with a building that was built in the late 20s, but it's not yet under the 1938 code. So I'm in that slack water between 22 and 38, and I need to prove that the condition was legal at that point
at
in
that
time.
point in time. That's
Which is why at
interesting.
home I have an
And it's also interesting that he'll come up with points that he's talking about, and he gets so in the weeds about the details that he doesn't realize he's losing the interviewer. The interviewer oftentimes wants to move on. It's pretty obvious from the way that he's talking or the way that he's trying to move on from what they're discussing, but he doesn't get that. He says what he wants, and he gets so caught up in these obsessive details that he doesn't easily shift from one question to the next every time. And it's interesting because it seems like he has social abilities. It seems that he can connect with people, but what he's saying to him is so important that he's losing his sense of audience a little bit. He's going into too much detail, and it's interesting to see him lose that a little bit. Listen to the interviewer right here and listen to how he just sort of keeps going.
between 22 and 38, and I need to prove that the condition was legal at that point
At that point in time. That's
which is why
interesting.
at home I have an extensive
See, the interviewer's looking at his questions. He's saying, yeah, that's interesting. And Heuermann is just bulldozing it because he has a point that he wants to make because he thinks that he is so smart. And maybe he is. Maybe this is just some brilliant stuff when it comes to architectural planning and city regulations and all of that. But the interviewer doesn't care as much as he does.
library
I'm sure.
of obsolete books. And people want to know, why do I have a plumbing code from the 1970s
Yeah. Uh-huh.
when I do?
If you were a tool or an object,
This is what everyone was talking about in this interview. He asked him, if you were a tool in your work, what would be your favorite tool? So I think I'm gonna have to assume that most of us saw this interview, but this is a real estate YouTuber, the guy with the red sweater and the scarf. He just interviewed Rex because he's an architect and he's a Manhattan realtor. You know, he does commercial real estate. This guy that's interviewing him, and he knew about Heuermann and his architect business, and he was thrilled to get this interview with him. He's got cliff notes. He's got all kinds of stuff that he wants to ask him here in his hands. So, but yeah, this is part of it. And I want to thank Susan Hale, who bought cups of coffee during this live stream. So Susan Hale, thank you for buying cups of coffee. She says, you guys are my favorite. Mary Rogers, too, bought cups of coffee. Farm Girl, Cape RN, Lucy J, Ann Winterstrand, somebody who is anonymous, and Teresa L. Thank you all for using the Buy a Cup of Coffee app.
Code from the 1970s
yeah. Uh-huh.
when I do.
If you were a tool or an object to help you in your to help you to bring your business to greater heights, what would it be?
That's an interesting question.
I know.
All right, so you see the lip licking. I think he's got ideas about how he wants to answer this, but there is some discomfort here. Throughout the interview, and I know I'm showing just tiny little parts, he doesn't do a lot of that. He doesn't show a lot of these, what we call pacifying behaviors. When we feel uncomfortable, we lick our lips, we do things with our mouth to make ourselves feel more comfortable. So there's something about when he's asking, I want to know something about you that's going to be a projection of your own thoughts about yourself. That's very revealing. So he actually does feel uncomfortable about doing this. Let's go back and watch that again.
That's an interesting question.
I know.
Because for what I do, we have to have so many tools in the toolbox.
Just one.
Just one.
Just one. Or an object. It doesn't have to be a tool. It can be an object.
You know what?
Yeah.
I know.
All right.
One of the things I learned from my father was furniture building.
So he's steepling right now. He's putting his fingers together like this. We oftentimes see this when people want to portray themselves as experts. Now, he is an expert in some ways, but it's interesting that when he's starting to talk about furniture building, that this is when he's doing this.
Okay.
He was an aerospace engineer and built satellites. And
runs in the family, building things.
And built furniture at home. And I still build it in the same exact workshop.
So it's interesting that, and if you look at his left hand, he's almost making a fist right now. I do think that there's hostility associated with what he's about to say.
I think also too, Dr. G, that Rex Heuermann was lying to this interviewer about building furniture in his workshop, because we saw some of his work on the front porch of his home, and the disarray that his home was in, and the eyesore that it was in, that the condition that it was in, and the neighbors all said it was an eyesore for 27 years. So Rex, I got to call bullshit on the making stuff at home. Let's back it up.
And built furniture at home. And I still build it in the same exact workshop.
Bullshit.
So it's interesting that, and if you look at his left hand, he's almost making a fist right now. I do think that there's hostility associated with what he's about to say.
Pretty much used in almost every job. And it's actually a cabinet maker's hammer.
Oh, okay. A cabinet maker hammer. Okay.
It is persuasive enough.
It's interesting to associate a word like persuasive with a hammer. So in essence, this question is what we call a projective test. It's when you project what goes on internally outward, whether you say it, draw it, do it in some different way. Point is that this is a projection of his own psychology. So when we think about somebody saying a hammer, what is that? That shows aggression, anger, force, power. He wants to be seen as powerful. So even when asking as an architect or as someone that deals with city regulations, what's going to make you better at that? What's going to push your business forward? He comes out with a hammer. So truly, he's the one characterizing himself as aggressive, as angry, which I think is interesting.
When I need to persuade something.
Not someone.
Something.
And it's also interesting that he said, when I need to persuade something, because truly he's talking about people, and people that are capable of killing, people that are sadistic, people that like to hurt. They do see people as objects. So when he says something, even if he is referring to people in some way, and you see the amusement afterwards, that may be very real amusement. He may really see people as objects.
Persuade something.
Not someone.
Something.
Because persuade is not a word we use to describe something we do with inanimate objects.
Always yields excellent results. Yeah. And at the end of the project, whatever piece of furniture or what I'm working on, it always helps it come out beautifully.
Okay, great.
He's satisfied with the way that the results come out when you have to persuade something with a hammer. I think that's interesting. Don't want to be trying to read too much into it, but these are his words. So I just find that all quite interesting.
So you would be kind of that kind of hammer for your business?
And he's also moving his hands around a lot more than he did throughout the previous parts of the interview, as far as like interlocking his fingers. Previously, when he talked, he would use his hands to emphasize. Right now, it's more fidgeting, which is interesting because he is letting somebody in on something that he has a little less control over. When you're talking about things that are projective, that's a little bit less control than we have when we're answering something concrete, like what your city's regulation was from. Watch his hands right here.
You would be kind of that kind of.
Also, look at his body posture. He's leaning backward as he talks about this. He's putting his nose in the air. And in a very real way, when people put their nose up to somebody else, it is a way of showing superiority. He does feel superior in this situation. It makes him feel superior and powerful to think about being the hammer.
For your business, that's what you're saying? If that doesn't exist, that's what you would be?
Sometimes I have to be the heavy framing hammer.
The heavy framing hammer.
Other times I'm the lightweight hammer just to nudge things along.
All right.
Once again, he seems to have some insecurity about projecting himself as the expert in these situations, while also answering these questions. Watch his hands.
The lightweight hammer just to nudge things.
See, he's doing the steepling again. He so desperately wants to come across as an expert, which it sounds like he is an expert in his field, but he's desperate to be seen as an expert and to be seen as smart. And that's what we oftentimes see when people are doing steepling. But it's almost an insecure level of steepling because he's doing that. He's putting his fingers together. He's holding his hands. So answering this question, that what tool would he be? He's going to be a hammer no matter what. And I think that that's a very telling and very interesting aspect of his psychology.
Along.
All right. I guess it's a hammer. We got it. But in the meantime, it's
Selfie time.
I was so surprised that he went along with this selfie time thing. And you're going to hear Dr. G talk a little bit about this, but they did this selfie thing with the glasses, and obviously it was, staged, and he knew that they were going to do it. He probably told them beforehand at the end of all my videos. I think that that was like this guy's signature. He always took selfies with people after he interviewed them. But it's interesting to see and hear what Dr. G has to say about this. And also we'll talk about the hammer a little bit more right after this is done.
selfie time. You're fast. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ah! Can you smile?
That is.
This once again shows someone that's in a tight amount of control. It's not somebody who comes across that he's anxious and doesn't want to smile. It comes across as someone who wants to be in control and doesn't want to smile for somebody else. So what we're seeing is someone who is highly meticulous, intelligent, analytical, and also likely very controlling. What I hope you've been able to do by watching this is better understand the psychology of Rex Heuermann as a possible suspect for these murders. Once again, this does not indicate that he did it. But what we're doing now is we're able to see a bit of his psychology, we're able to see a bit of his body language, and we're getting an idea of what he is like. That being said, that
was a really good interview, a good breakdown of that interview by Dr. G. And we're going to have him on with us to go further into Rex Heuermann. And I think I'm hoping that tomorrow we get a little footage of him coming into the courtroom, because we do have some of his previous appearances going in and out of the courtroom. And we also have Rex Heuermann walking out of the police department in Suffolk County when he was initially booked in the day that he was collared. So we'll have some of that. I wanted to go over quickly a piece from News Nation where an attorney chimes in about tomorrow and about possibilities of what's going to happen tomorrow, and then we'll wrap it up. Hey, what did you guys think about him talking about the hammer? At certain points, he could be a sledgehammer, and other points, little hammers to move things along in his professional life. When he was making that analogy, comparing that actually to his work as an architect to get things to move along. But there are some that argue that he may have used a hammer on some of his victims. Now, remember, all the girls' remains, the Gilgo 4, were all skeletonized, right? None of those remains were what we would normally think of. You come onto a homicide scene and you have an intact body. But, if there was a skull broke or, some type of blunt force trauma, you could see cracked ribs or cracked, different parts of the body would show on skeletal remains if he used blunt force trauma. But if he used blunt force trauma to just hit somebody in the head and there's soft tissue, like I've seen many people hit in the head with a hammer and just get a really bad, contusion. If that was in fact one of the method that he used to maybe stun his victims, we would never know based on the skeletal remains recovered at the location, because the soft tissue is gone, right? The skin is gone. So unless he broke a bone, collarbone, ribs, legs, arms, so forth, then we would not know. He could have hit them over the head and not broke, and then didn't break the skull. So this could lead into investigators looking at some of the things that they removed from his house. Sure, he had hammers. I'm sure he had, sledgehammers and all the things that he alluded to in this interview. So the DNA perhaps could be there or could not be there, depending on how it was cleaned up. Pete, remember, we're talking about the remains were recovered in 2010, right? And some of these girls were gone years before that. So it's a long time in between, and then a long time when afterwards, after remains were recovered, into the 2023 arrest of Rex Heuermann. So collecting items from him and his home and his car in South Carolina, a lot of things happen with those vehicles. A lot of things happen with the evidence. So it makes it tough, but it doesn't make it impossible. And that's the good thing. So let's listen to this. Thanks, Pete, for always chiming in. Hello, LA. Good to see you. Carrie, thank you for joining. Black Rose, always great to see you. Barbara, love and respect. Vicky, Team Brittany, late night. What time is it in the UK, Karen? What is it, 6:20 in the morning? 5 a.m., something like that? Karen's up all night. She's like Rhonda Shear, up all night. Who knows that reference? Rhonda Shear. You'd have to be my age to know who Rhonda Shear is. But that's Karen, Legal Minded Friends, up all night.
Dante Mills to talk about what we can, attorney Dante Mills to talk about what we can expect. Thank you for being with us. 2 hearings this week. What will be discussed and what might come out of these meetings with both sets of attorneys and the judge?
So these meetings, good morning. These meetings are pretrial hearings that will talk about the evidence that's going to be used during the trial. There was also a request by Max Heuermann's attorneys to return the family.
Yes, he called him Max Heuermann. He meant Rex Heuermann. He's talking, Dante Mills, always great, always a good talking head, but well-versed when it comes to being a trial attorney. They're talking about Rex Heuermann and his court appearance tomorrow.
To return the guns to the families. So they're making this claim and they're saying that he's innocent, that he didn't do this, and that the weapons that were taken were not used in this crime. That's their argument, and that they should be returned to the family. So the judge is going to decide that, as well as some evidentiary hearings as far as what can and will be heard during a trial process.
So the request for the guns, is that a reasonable request? I mean, given the fact that they may not have been used, do you expect the judge to grant that?
So we have to see what evidence they presented to show that it's separate from Max Heuermann himself. So if these are guns that were used by other people in the family or purchased by other people in the family just because they were in the house when the search of the house was done, does not mean that the government gets to keep them. But if the government is saying we have reason to believe that a gun was used, and for example, if there's a certain type of gun or shell casing or bullet hole that was found that matches the caliber of one of those guns or something like that, then that does give the judge the ability.
I'm going to stop it there. Carly, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a channel member in the past. We greatly appreciate you, and thank you for sticking and being a subscriber. She says, if he had illegal guns, they aren't going to keep the if he had illegal guns, they aren't going to keep the illegal ones and hand back the legal ones. None of the guns that he possessed, as far as we know, were illegal. And there was a conversation, and thank you for that comment. There was a conversation that he did have some assault rifles. But if they were obtained pre-ban, meaning, before they put these assault weapons bans in place, if they were obtained legally, then it could be grandfathered in, or they could just confiscate those and not have any charges against him. So we'll have to see, and we'll have to see what's happening. But thank you for your input there, Carly.
To have those guns held as investigation until this process is over. But, it's the court doesn't want to give outright discretion to the investigating body. So example, if a police officer raids your home and finds anything, they can't just take it. It has to be tied to the crime. And that's what the judge is going to review. If there's evidence that ties it to the crime, makes it a part of the investigation, then they will keep it. But if not, then the family does have the right to get it back.
He's been in court a couple of times. Do we expect in this week's court appearances that he will show his face and be brought into court?
I don't believe he's going to be brought into court this week. These are preliminary hearings. Generally, the court wants clients there. If anything can happen that can actually have the ability to have your case dismissed or impact your case in the moment. These are hearings where they'll discuss scheduling, some lighter motions and things like that. So the defendant will not necessarily be brought down for that. It is a process, and it's expensive to have prisoners transported back and forth to court. So especially after COVID, they're reducing the amount of times that a prisoner is brought to court only when there's going to be impact on his case, not if they're just scheduling things or handling motions that won't impact the outcome.
There is so much evidence, according to prosecutors in this case, against him, starting with the DNA. We saw his truck a moment ago on the screen. What will be the challenges for his defense?
The challenge is going to be highlighting. They're going to have to highlight that there's no direct evidence. So DNA is important, but it doesn't stand alone tell you what happened, because DNA can't tell time. So he can say in his defense, well, yes, he engaged with this person before, but not at the time of the murder. Yes, he even solicited her. At some point, she was in his vehicle, but that does not mean she was in his vehicle the day she was killed. So DNA doesn't tell time. There's some restrictions to DNA evidence, and there's no direct evidence that we know of. There's no eyewitness to say we saw them together.
Right. But what he's leaving out here is, okay, DNA doesn't tell what time these crimes took place. But when he used his burner phones to contact all of these sex workers and lure them into his lair, lure them into his home or his car, those are some of the things. And this is why defense attorneys kind of get under my skin sometimes. I love this guy. I love all the defense attorneys because you never know when you're going to need one, right? It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. But my thing of it is that there are tons of pieces of evidence that were collected that put Heuermann with these girls. So this is where the waters get muddied when people make statements like this. The talking heads only have small amounts of time to talk, and they don't play the full interview. Like if I had this guy on with me here for an hour, we would have a full conversation. You're hearing 5 minutes and 19 seconds of it here. So it is what it is. Let's let the rest of this rip, and then we'll wrap it up.
When, the day that they were before, but not at the time of the murder. DNA is important, but it doesn't stand alone tell you what happened, because DNA can't tell time. So he can say in his defense, well, yes, he engaged with this person before, but not at the time of the murder. Yes, he even solicited her. At some point, she was in his vehicle, but that does not mean she was in his vehicle the day she was killed. So DNA doesn't tell time. There's some restrictions to DNA evidence, and there's no direct evidence that we know of. There's no eyewitness to say we saw them together.
There is an eyewitness. Okay. So we'd have to go back to Amber Costello, right? And her boyfriend, pimp, whatever you want to call him, saw and watched and came into the room in the house in Babylon, and they had that ruse that they were creating. Remember, they ripped them off for $1,000 or whatever, and they were making the exchange money for sex, which is a crime, and they were making the exchange, and the plan was is this guy would come out, the redheaded, I don't know what his name is off the top of my head. He comes out of the room and says, "What are you doing with my girlfriend?" And then Rex Heuermann walks off and goes out of the house and goes into his car and then immediately texts her, "Hey, that wasn't nice what you did to me." That's an eyewitness. I don't know. Am I missing something here? Or again, is this defense attorney not given the proper amount of time? And maybe he did talk about it in this interview, because they'll interview you for an hour and take 5 minutes, little clips. Yeah, David Charlotte. Thank you, Tiffany Knox. I know, listen, I know I can count on my web sleuths, my internet detectives. Thank you.
When, the day her, at some point she was in his vehicle, but that does not mean before. It doesn't stand alone tell you what happened, because DNA can't tell time. So he can say in his defense, well, yes, he engaged with this person before, but not at the time of the murder. Yes, he even solicited her. At some point she was in his vehicle, but that does not mean he was
in her house,
in his vehicle the day she was killed. So DNA doesn't tell.
She was never seen again after she got in his vehicle the next day. And when she left the house, the boyfriend / roommate, whatever you want to call him, said it was odd that she left without taking her purse or her cell phone, and they never saw her again. And she went on a date with Heuermann. This guy's going to be called into court, that redhead. So he's going to be called into court.
Time there's some restrictions to DNA evidence, and there's no direct evidence that we know of. There's no eyewitness to say we saw them together when the day that they were murdered or anything like that. So there's going to be challenges for the prosecution, even though they do have a lot of evidence in their favor. There are some avenues for the defense to say you can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that our client committed these murders because no one saw it happen. So much time has passed. And even though you have some things like DNA, that's not enough to remove all doubt.
And we know he's being investigated for the death of a fourth woman and potentially other cold cases. If they're able to tie him based on evidence to any.
She's referring to Maureen Brainerd Barnes. So the four victims, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Costello. They're still waiting for the fourth charge to come down. Hopefully that's come sooner than later. They proceed to cut this attorney off in the middle of him speaking. I hate when News Nation does this. Like, why put up a clip like this if you're going to cut the person off while they're talking? Watch this. This is so unprofessional, and I don't know why they do this. It just doesn't make any sense.
Of those, would that be included in any pending trial based on of a fourth woman and potentially other cold cases? If they're able to tie him based on evidence to any of those, would that be included in any pending trial?
So if you have some kind of constant, procedure or routine that he used, if you're looking at the serial killer monogram where you're saying this is how he killed his victims, allegedly, then that can be discussed because you talk about the practice of it. But if there's individual cases, then my argument as a defense attorney would be he can only be tried for one case at a time.
Thank you for watching. Go to News.
Why? Golly. Anyways, so that, that's the situation that we got going on. Hopefully tomorrow, attorney Melanie Little will be at the courthouse, and we'll get some updates from her firsthand. Look for her live streams. I'll share them here on my community tab. If she goes live or whenever she plans to do a video, I will share it on the community tab. So if you don't get the notifications for her going live, you'll get them from me. So we'll be on top of that. Tomorrow, Ed Wallace and I are getting together for lunch. We're going to do lunch in Brooklyn. So we'll be hanging out. Good to see you, MMM. DutyRon, good morning from South Africa. Thank you for being for your informative shows. Always something to look forward to. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for being here and thank you for supporting. Team Brittany Popeye is tucked in and sleeping. He's not going to be making any noise tonight. It's way past his bedtime. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed these late night live streams with DutyRon, unscheduled, no script. If you enjoy these live streams, put a 1 in the chat. If you're looking forward to seeing Dr. G explains, break down Rex Heuermann a little bit more extensively on maybe an hour-long live stream, also let me know by putting that in the comment sections down below. Again, I'm looking forward to lunch tomorrow with Ed Wallace. Hopefully I can get him back in the studio in here and we'll do some live streaming or something like that. If not, we're just going to enjoy lunch and talk about some cases and stuff like that. Looking forward to CrimeCon in 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee. Hopefully you guys all will make it down there if you can. I know some of you can't, but Sister Carol Ann Clark, good to see you, sister. You're up late. Hopefully you're going to sleep soon. Christina says, what's for lunch? I don't know. You never know. We're going to Brooklyn. So Brooklyn's got a lot of good food. Oh, wait, Brooklyn. We're going to Brooklyn. Kind Heart is saying hello. If you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, if you're just stumbling across this live stream, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up. If you guys are all here right now, hit the thumbs up for me. Share out the video. Put it out onto your social media platforms. Follow us, me and Ed, on all things social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all one word, DutyRon. I'm going to be doing tomorrow night an interview on TikTok with my good friend Julie, who came in, Julie Louise, 1975. I'll share it on my community post. I'm going to do a half-hour interview with her tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. She's, I think, on Mountain or Atlantic time in Canada, so she's an hour ahead. So I'm going to be doing an interview on TikTok with her. Ed refuses TikTok. He won't go on it. But I'm going to do an interview with her. And I tried to coax her into doing it on YouTube, but she said, no, I want to do it on TikTok. So I'll be on TikTok tomorrow night with her. All right, guys. Always great to see you. Peace and love from my house to yours. As I always like to end these things, it's about the victims and their families. I'm wearing the Gabby Petito Foundation shirt that I purchased from a fundraiser. We sent probably a little bit over $5,000 in ad revenue from this channel to Gabby Petito Foundation. We're big supporters of domestic violence awareness, missing persons cases, EquiSearch Midwest, Day Raider, and Twyla. We support them. So thank you to everyone who supports this channel and this community. You guys are what makes this a great place. Your money that you donate goes to good things, like supporting people who are fighting for justice for people, victims of crime, and so forth. All right, guys, good night. I'll see you soon. Stand by for a message from the COP team. And thank you to the replay viewers, the moderators, and everybody who hung out here tonight. Love you guys, and I'll see you soon. Peace and love from DutyRon.